It's the same now after each shooting. A killer walks into a gun-free zone, breaks every law already on the books and on the heart, by the way. And then the Hate America left feigns indignation, and they promptly get to work sledgehammering the Second Amendment. Folks, in this short video, I'm going to talk about two things. First of all, how did America get to where it is today? We didn't have these monsters a couple of decades ago walking in and murdering people constantly. And second, I'm going to talk about what our reaction as gun owners should be and what we can do to fix these problems. See, more often than not, the mass killers we see today are deranged leftists that are simply taking action on the deranged faith that's being drilled into them by everyone around them. Just look at the manifesto of Audrey Hale, Aiden Hale, she called herself, the Covenant Church killer from Nashville, Tennessee. By now, you know that on Wednesday morning of this week, it's the first week of September, a 14-year-old male student murdered 4 innocent people and injured, I think it was 9 more at a high school. I think it's called Apalachee High School in Winder, Georgia, which is the hometown of our sister organization, Georgia Gun Owners. But nobody bothers to even let the blood dry anymore, let alone give time for anyone to grieve. Instead, the tragedy is instantly blown up by the fake news media and used by radical leftist activists everywhere to push their communist gun control agenda at all levels of government, unless, of course, we've seen this a gazillion times, unless, of course, the shooter doesn't fit their narrative. Sometimes they're the wrong color. Yesterday afternoon, Biden's DEI hire spokesperson, Karine Jean-Pierre, got in front of the cameras at the White House to blather about how enough is enough and that we need to do something. She went on again to demand that Congress pass a national red flag gun confiscation law, national gun registration, mandatory gun lockups, and last but not least, a total ban on so-called assault weapons like the AR-15s that millions of people like you and me own as a bulwark against tyranny. None, I want to be clear, to use a Biden phrase, I want to be clear about this, none of their gun control solutions, proposals, or traps would have changed a thing about what happened at the Apalachee High School. They never have. Gun control never has stopped anything from happening, and it never will. But I want to drill down some of the facts here, first of all. The shooter illegally took possession, we believe, of his dad's firearm and transported it to the school. That's a crime. The shooter entered a gun-free school safety zone with his stolen firearms. That is a state and federal crime. The shooter murdered 4 people. I think it was 2 students and 2 teachers, and injured 9 more. I don't know how many of them were actual gunshot wounds and how many of them were ancillary to the effect. But 4 murdered and 9 additional injured, all of which are felony crimes of violence. The point here is that laws don't stop killers. I know I'm preaching to the choir here. The FBI, here's another point, the FBI, as increasingly seems to be the case, admitted that the killer was on their radar last year already for making terroristic threats or threats of attack. But neither the FBI nor local law enforcement did anything about it. The murderer even called the school on the morning of the attack and told them what would happen, and still they did nothing. Don't forget, though, I want you guys to not forget this. There are already laws on the books in Georgia, and there is a law on the books in every single state in America that allows for law enforcement to arrest someone for making terroristic, violent threats. I have real-life examples of what happened in some of our states, like Ohio, for example, where a student made terroristic threats at 10 o'clock p.m., By 2:00 a.m. that next morning, the sheriff had been to their house, confiscated the guns, and put that kid in prison. Every state in America has that already on the books. But the left doesn't want to talk about this. The media doesn't want to talk about it. The Democrats pushing for gun control, some of these rhinos, they never want to talk about it. And they never, ever want to point their fingers back at themselves. They'll never do that. It's not on the table. Reports say that the shooter did not stop his killing spree until the school resource officer got on the scene, aka a good guy with a gun, as is always the case. When the crap hits the fan, where's the good guy with the gun? That's the natural reaction. So we got some problems here, and we need to figure out what the solutions. What are the solutions? Well, I would submit to you that to find a working solution, the problem needs to be accurately identified. And I think it's in our best interest to do so. Because the fact is, every time there is a shooting, the radical left will continue swooping in, seizing the emotional anger from the situation, and firing America's desire to stop these things from happening at gun owners like you and me. That's exactly what they are doing. They come in, they grab the emotional indignation, they harness that, and they turn it right back around, and they shoot that at gun owners like you and me. In other words, the left erects a straw man by demanding a simple solution to a problem that is clearly not very simple. And then they tear that straw man down when gun owners refuse to yield. And then they scream at gun owners as if it's somehow our fault. It's a lot there. I think we need to unpack this a little bit. The reality is, this is a cultural issue. And the reality is that the radical Marxist left has been in the American cultural driver's seat, for lack of a better term, for the last 50 years. The woke progressive movement, I would say it kicked into high gear in August of 1969, and it began work in earnest to tear down the moral backbone of America that had served as kind of the foundation for stable society since our founding. The progressive left, they started out by systematically infiltrating our education system at every level, because if you can access the kids for 8 hours a day, you can control a country's future. Then they systematically attacked the family unit. They normalized broken and wrecked families. They attacked fatherhood and removed the need for fathers and dads by implementing the welfare state. All this while they attacked the idea of marriage as boring and labeled the idea of raising a family as antiquated or repressive. Shouting separation of church and state at the top of their lungs, they convinced enough people to go along with the false dichotomy of moral neutrality, attacking the church and attacking God right out of schools in the process. These are big problems. In fact, they've been so systematic about it that America has largely thrown out the idea of having an objective moral standard of right and wrong entirely. But they have targets. I mean, we've already kind of touched on this subject. The progressive left is obsessed with kids and the youth because that is their biggest opportunity to convert people to their degenerate worldview. That's why their entire curriculum is geared towards indoctrinating kids to grow up hating their parents, hating their family, hating their community, hating their country and their heritage. All of those things that have historically provided cultural stability for a nation. Turns out that this is highly destructive. Chaos, I would submit, has been the fruit of their deliberate corrupting efforts. And so because chaos has ensued, they've had to normalize broken families, broken homes, broken churches, broken communities, and relabel this brokenness as in this diversity as some kind of strength. I would say probably isn't. This has real world consequences too. The widespread anxiety that kids get from not having moms and not having dads that love them and parent them, and the effect of not having a community support system around them that also shares their same values. That Johnny and Susan next door are very similar. This total, the anxiety that kids have from this has resulted in the widespread use of psychotropic drugs as a treatment for the ensuing cultural woes that happen when you destroy these bedrock foundation pillars of society. So when little boys and girls get nervous and they start acting out in school because their little lives at home have been totally shattered by the new cultural norms of the progressive left, instead of helping these little kids or fixing America's life at home, our system's new reaction is to just give them a pill. And to be clear, the pills these kids are getting are mind-altering, psychotropic, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor drugs that mess up some of their brains for life. Give them drugs. Give them some drugs, our system says. But then those kids start to grow up a little bit more. They get bigger. They start to act out even more. They get confused. They get angry. And the whole time they're going through this mess, their home lives are a total disaster. And they have no moms and no dads to step in and parent them. But you know who is there for them? The cultural Marxists, aka what I call groomers, that have invaded our schools. You've seen them before, the purple-haired, gauged-out freaks that you see on the libs of TikTok. Yeah, they're there for them. They come right in alongside these poor, torn-up kids with bad home lives, and they tell them how wonderful they are, how their parents just hate them, and how bad America is, and how evil people like you and me, well, we just don't understand them for who they really are. Meanwhile, the kids keep growing up. They buy into this progressive, woke, leftist crap, this new normal that the left has created in this country. And then somewhere along the way, sickos step in with their gender confusion programs and their debauchery. And they tell these kids that you're probably just a little boy or girl instead of what you were when God made you. You see how this goes? At some point along the way here, the kid goes from a little kid with nervousness and anxiety, and they grow up a little bit, and then it turns to rage, and it goes to suicidal thoughts, and then it goes to homicidal thoughts, because the entire system, from when they were little kids up until the moment they snap, the entire system has betrayed them. That is how some of these monsters are being created. Don't believe me? Just go read the Nashville Church Killers Manifesto. I think I'm afraid that we are only at the beginning stages of this. And I think we're going to be reaping the consequences of these failures of what we have allowed, this parasitic left that if we have allowed to embed itself into the host of America. I think we're going to be reaping the consequences of these failures for years to come. This degradation of our culture and our way of life has not been an accident, however. And its proponents have led us exactly to where we are today. One of the most obvious things I can think of from just a little while ago is that Paul Harvey Click movie where he said, he said, if I was to bring down America, just look that up on YouTube sometime. If I were to wreck America, this is what I would do. If I were the devil, that's what it's called. That's exactly what the left, the progressive left, has been doing to America. And no new laws are going to change this either. No new laws are going to stop the next killer from walking into a school. And this is exactly what the radical left is erecting as a bully pulpit to keep pounding in their unholy crusade against our gun rights. Their ultimate goal, I know it, you know it, they know it. It's to disarm America and then turned this country into a bunch of mindless serfs that can be farmed like animals to support their New World communism. Like the tyrants of old, they don't care how many dead men, women, and children it takes, because to them, the end always justifies the means. Now, does that mean that we're going to roll over and let them take the ground that our forefathers bought with their own blood? Hell no. We're Americans. So like our founding fathers and forefathers said before us, our cause we leave to heaven and our rifles, if it comes down to that. But in the meantime, we've got a political fight in front of us, and we aim to win it. That's why I am asking you tonight, or whenever you're watching this video, to double down on your commitment to fight for the Second Amendment. It is the freedom that protects all of our others. Your kids, your grandkids, those who are following after us, they are counting, even though they don't even know it yet. They are counting on you and me to stand up and be recognized and fight for them. Just as much as we relied on our founding fathers, even though we didn't know there was even a fight going on. I'll tell you one group that we can't count on. We cannot count on the Republicans and the Republican Party to stand up on their own. There are some within the party, but after all, the Republicans are the ones that have betrayed gun owners time and again, both at the state level and at the federal. We've seen this in D.C. when so many, I think it was 16 Republicans, broke ranks from the Republican conferences, joined the Democrats, and voted for Joe Biden's bipartisan Safer Communities Act. We've seen it in state legislatures across the country. Florida, Indiana have both passed Republican red flag sponsored gun confiscation laws. They've tried to pass it in Ohio, in Pennsylvania, and in Georgia, and Tennessee, and so many other places. Iowa, Minnesota. Actually, they did pass it in Minnesota now. The Republicans have fallen down on the job so many times. We've gotten the message loud and clear. They cannot be trusted to stand up on their own. It is up to us. It is up to us. And that's I think my last point here. We can count on each other. And quite frankly, I like our chance at defeating these bastards long term, as long as we stand together. That's why we continue right here at this channel you're watching. We continue to mobilize day in and day out to get our side mobilized, identified, mobilized, engaged, down off of the bleachers and on the court, fighting alongside of us, like we used to like to say here, and ready for the fights that keep coming our way. I guess I'd say this too. Whatever channel you're watching this on right now, whatever group you're watching this on right now, please consider chipping in and contributing to our efforts to continue doing these things. The left is fundraising hand over fist right now off of this tragedy, off the upcoming presidential elections. We cannot let them get the upper hand. We can't always match them dollar for dollar, but my goodness, I'd stack one of ours up to 10 of theirs once they know what's at stake and how to be effective at grassroots mobilization politics. This organization's strength has always come from our members, and it is time for us to put that strength to work right now. I want to thank you guys for your support. Just remember this. Don't back down, don't retreat, don't surrender, and don't feel guilty. Don't feel the need to apologize or accept blame for any of what the parasite left is trying to do to this country. It's time for us to stand and fight. We're dang proud to be here with you.